When we see anything, when we do anything, all of this is grounded on the very existence which comes forth from our heart. And the very existence that announces itself as I in our heart is divine. We look for God, we look for freedom here and there, but the highest pointer, the most direct pointer given by the true Sadguru is simply look within and recognize that you are already what you're looking for. We don't have to, therefore, ever identify with the mind as the seeker and then look for anything. But if we simply turn within and recognize that the very seeker and the sought are both ideas that are coming and going within the ground of existence. As long as we are seeking something, we are identified with the subject, which is a collection of our knowledge and memory and so on, with which we are looking. And that is perfectly all right because that is the natural conditioning in all of us. Everybody is seeking something. When we recognize the impermanent nature of all seeking, whether it's seeking material pleasures or wealth or power or any of that, then we look for something that's eternal, something that is truly liberating, truly giving us peace, truly situating us in happiness, because everything else comes and goes. We have experience of happiness momentarily coming and going, but it only is the duality of pleasure followed by pain. And therefore, every experience leaves us, if anything, drained more. As long as we are identified with the false idea that I am the experiencer and looking for something through the experience to gain happiness, peace, and so on. So, when we then ask the question as to what is that which can be truly bestowing peace, happiness, that seeking is the, one can say, the last seeking. And when we ask that question, then by the grace of the Guru, the grace of Bhagavan, we are pointed out that find out who is the one that is seeking. So if we then look within, then we recognize that the very idea of a seeker is also something that just comes and goes. Even seeking for any state of liberation, any notion of freedom, any conception of God, all of this is only still within the realm of our knowledge, our memory, our experiences. So then, if we look within as to where is all this happening, the very seeker and the sought, the very goal of seeking, whether we call it God or whether we call it self or whether we call it the eternal, unborn, so many names are there. Whatever name we call, the names and the ideas we have of the goal is still only partial because it's acquired only through memory and knowledge. And the seeker is also a product of experience. But if we look within and find out where the seeker and the sought are, it's all happening in existence. Our own existence is the ground in which seeking happens, the goal of the seeking happens, the idea of seeking something through time, through practice. All of this happens only in the ground of existence. And the very ground of existence is constantly announcing itself as I, and it is free of all seeking. Whatever seeking happens, it's simply happening in the light of the very existence. So, this existence that we are is prior to any seeking itself. And that is the highest pointer of the true Sadguru. So, Ramana Maharishi, that's why simply always points one to find out where is the seeker coming from. The seeker will never be finding what the goal he is seeking is, but the seeker, when dissolves, the goal is already there. So that is the mystery of this whole process. But at the same time, that's why it's so simple too when we see it. As long as we are identified with the mind, then the mind is pulling us outwardly. It seems to be a struggle. We are constantly fighting various tendencies, various desires, and all the rest. But if we can keep the mind simple and clear and turn the mind within and look at the I, the very I in which the mind is operating, the desires are rising, everything is rising within this very ground of I. So if we turn the mind within with clarity, so the only thing we need is clarity. We have to be keep the mind clear and simple. And when we are clear and simple and we turn the mind within, then we can look at the very I. The mind looks at its very source and finds that it is coming forth from the pure sense of existence, which is announcing itself as I am in the heart. And this pure sense of existence is the basis on which we function. Every activity, every perception, every thought, everything happens only on the basis of this ground of existence. And this ground of existence is unmistakably present in every one of us. Nobody denies that I exist. Everyone touches their heart to say I, and we feel that I am here, and that I is independent of the conception of any particular form or thought or anything. The forms keep changing, thoughts keep changing, everything else keep changing. The only thing that remains constant is the sense I. And that sense I is rising spontaneously in our heart every moment. So we just have to catch it. We somehow ignore that and we are looking outwardly every moment, and then everything is very bewildering because there are so many books to read. They talk of so many practices, they talk of so many techniques. All of this have their place, of course, in regulating the mind, in purifying the mind. So everything is given for a reason, but then ultimately one has to come to look at the source. If we are constantly caught in all the various partial practices, methods, then it seems to be never ending. So at some point, when they exhaust themselves, when we recognize that this is still a merry-go-round, going round and round constantly, and it is always just a little outside of the reach. The mind is always putting something out there, and then it's always saying it'll happen now, it'll happen tomorrow, but it never happens because the mind is always only a partial manifestation, and therefore it can never come upon that which is eternal. It is itself a simple expression within the eternal. So then the highest pointer comes, which is to not engage in any practices that look outwardly, but simply look within. To give up everything else and to just focus on one thing, which is our own pure beingness. This is exactly what Krishna says in the Gita too, when he ends it by saying, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. He says, abandon everything else. All dharmas, all methods, all practices, you can abandon everything and simply surrender unto me. When Krishna says surrender unto me, he is speaking as the very heart of existence, because he has already said who Krishna is. He says, Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhuta Shayastita. I am the self of all, sitting in the hearts of all. So to surrender unto him, abandoning all other dharmas, all other practices, is the direct and the highest way. So when we come to this point, we recognize that true surrender, which is true self-abidance, which is true God realization, is all simply to turn within. So we don't have to then ever identify with the mind and beat ourselves as I am this, I am that, I am having all these thoughts, I am having negative thoughts, I am having this. All of this is only as long as we don't turn within and we identify with partial fragments of memory which are taking us in 1,000 different directions. So all this requires is, therefore, to not identify with these 1,000 fragments, but recognize where all of this are coming from. There can be 1,000 bubbles of water, but if we recognize the ocean, then all the bubbles are also only water, but they don't distract us. So ultimately, every thought, every fragment of memory is also divine, coming forth from the same source. But as long as we are partially identified with it, it doesn't reveal itself as divine. It seems to be something very narrow, partial, and constraining. So if we simply, therefore, look within and find out the very sense of existence and surrender unto it, it is the divine, the supreme being who is announcing himself in the heart as I am. So we don't have to go anywhere to look for God. If we recognize this, God already and ever is happening in our heart. Our very existence is God. It is so radical in its simplicity that we think it cannot be this way. But if we simply look into it, that is why again and again Ramana Maharshi says, find out where this I is coming from. Then we notice that the I is coming forth on its own. We cannot actually find out the source of the I. It is not to find out, such as finding out an object in perception. It is to simply abide in it. When we recognize that the very sense of existence is rising spontaneously, and in this spontaneous rising is alone everything is happening. So, what am I calling as I? There is no separate individual volition, even in the very sense of existence. Existence happens, and in that happening of existence happens all perceptions, activities, thoughts, including the sense of ego. So then we recognize that everything is just coming forth spontaneously from the one eternal source. And when we simply remain as the sense of existence, then it subsides into that source and there is only silence. So that is the true direct meditation, is to get rid of all outer activities. There is a nice expression in Arunachala Pancharatnam where he says, Veli Vishayam Vittu Velangum Arunesa, the one who remains free of all outer activities. All outer activities, of course, are emanations from the same source, but the sense I remains without being affected by any outer activity. So when we dissociate from identifying with all outer activities, thought movements, self images, and just turn to ask, where is all this happening? Who is the one present here in which all these thoughts and perceptions are perceived? Then that very sense of existence is revealing itself. We come in touch with it, the mind turns to its source, and that sense of existence is simply present, simply aware, and simply peaceful. So it is Sat Chit Ananda, and it is the very divine itself which comes forth in every living entity as I am. So when we recognize this I am, we surrender unto God. We do not identify then with anything outwardly as me. Surrendering to God is to surrender the false sense of me. It is not to surrender to another projection of the me. It is to surrender the very me who is projecting. And when we surrender the very me that is projecting, then what remains is the very sense of existence in which all these projections come and go. And that very sense of existence, when we abide as it, then that is the direct communion with God.